We are welcome to the Raw Stitches. Today I will be teaching on how to draft basic bustier half length for half length. Width: shoulder to shoulder 15, bust 36, waist 30, hip 38, shoulder to waist 17, bust point, shoulder to bust point 10, and shoulder to under bust 13 and a half. So to start with, I'll be moving down from the border of my paper with 1 inch. So I want us to know that most of the time you don't draft with seam allowance, sewing allowance. You don't draft with sewing allowance. So this draft will not have sewing allowance. But there are times that when I want to use it for sewing, I draft and infuse my sewing allowance so that I will not forget. But for the purpose of this lesson, we are not drafting with sewing allowance. So I've drawn my shoulder line. This is my shoulder line. So the next line is, after drawing the shoulder line, I'm going to take from the shoulder line, I'll be taking the bust point, which is 10 inches, and drawing out the horizontals now. 10 inches. Then the under bust 13 and a half. And a half. And the waist 17 inches. So after taking that, the next thing now is to input yes, I still have one horizontal, that is my shoulder to shoulder, and the shoulder to shoulder I'm using is 15 inches. So I'll be dividing my 15 by 2, giving me 7 and a half. I'll mark at 7 and a half, go back by 0.75 inches. Then on the center line here, I'm going to go in by 2 and a half. From this 2 and a half, I will join the 2 points, the point here, and that will give me my shoulder slope. So after drawing out, so this will give me my shoulder slope. After drawing out the shoulder slope, I will come down a little bit to mark 7 and a half again, so that I can draw my armhole depth. So from there, I'm going to take a line down, and my armhole depth will also be 7 and a half. The same thing with my shoulder line, or shoulder to shoulder. So from here, I'm taking 7 and a half, but from the shoulder line, the measurement is 8 and a half. So to get a straight line, I'm going to come to this side and take 8.25, so I can have a straight line. But if you have a set square, you may not need to do that. But I'm not using a set square, so and I need a straight line. Then the next thing is for me to take this armhole depth down to the chest line. Now I have my chest line, bust point, under bust line, and waistline. I hope we get that. So now the next thing is to draw the armhole. So for the front armhole, I'm going to find the middle of 7 and a half, and that will give me 3.75. So I'm going to mark at 3.75. I'm marking at 3.75. Then from this 3.75, I will go in by 0.75 inches like this. So I will now take my curve ruler and make sure the tip of my ruler is sitting on this point, on this 9 points where the horizontal line and the vertical line intersects. Then the other edge will be on this point that I make here, and the last point will be on the line, on the point where the shoulder line or shoulder slope and the armhole line intersect. So I will be drawing a curve now. So this is my armhole. So I've drawn out my armhole now. So the next thing now is to impute my waist. Now I want to impute my bust span. That is the nipple to nipple. The bust span is the nipple to nipple. So to have that, the bust span I'm working with is 7. So I'll be having 7 divided by 2. That is 3.5. So I'll mark 3.5. From this edge, which is my center line, I will go in by 3.5. So I'll go in by 3.5 this way, upper side and to the lower side. Then on the bust span, here at the under bust, I'll be taking 1 inch from, I'm removing 2 inches. So I'll be taking 1 inch from each side of the dark line. 1 inch to this side, 1 inch to this side, making a total of 2 inches. Now, for my waist, I won't have to bring that down that 1 inch. For my waist, I just want to take the dart, the excess. So in order to take away the dart, I'll find the difference of my bust and my waist. The bust I'm working with is 36. 36 divided by 4, I have 9. Minus, I'm working with a waist of 30. 30 divided by 4, I have 7.5 minus 7.5. So I will be having 1.5 left. So my dart difference, my dart now is 1.5. And this 1.5, I'll be sharing it between this line. So I'll be having 0.75 to this side and 0.75 to this side. So by the time I take in this, dart line, sorry, I'm trying to make use of the resources I'm having at hand. By the time I take in this 0.75 and 0.75 here, so that will be my dart intake. So the next thing now is to draw out my curve. But to do that, before I do that, I will just bring down this line, like so. Now after that, turning my ruler this way, this curve edge will be on the shoulder point. I'll make sure that the curve blends with this line and the straight line is on the intercept here. So I will now draw a smooth curve to this place. I hope you see. Then I'll just turn it the other way around like this, and also draw a smooth curve the same way. So after drawing the smooth curve the same way, the next thing now is to take my side measurement. Take the side dart. For someone that have a bust, the side dart is very, very important. So this will be going off. This is my dart that will be going off. Then for the side darts now, I can measure from the chest line to the waistline, and I can also measure from the chest line to the underbust line. Whichever is convenient for me, I can take. But for the purpose of this lesson, I'm measuring from the chest line to the underbust line. There's no difference in it anyways. So, and I'm having 5.25 here, which half is 5.625. So I'll be taking my 2.625. Half of 5.25 is 2.625. So I'll be marking the 6.625 here. 2.625, sorry, 2.625 here on my, and this is where it falls to. Then on this point, I'll just adjust to take 1 inches from this side and 1 inches from this side also. The reason I'm taking 1 inches from this side and 1 inches from this side is because looking at the measurements, the person is not busty. She has an average bust. So because she's having an average bust, that is why I'm taking 2 inches. To assume the person is busty, I can take up to 2.5 or 3 inches, depending. And you can know if the person is busty as a result of the difference between the bust line, the bust circumference, and the waist circumference. That will be a lesson for another day. So I would mark a straight line from there. I'll mark a straight line from there. This is exactly on the line, so I'm taking this line to the bust point. So I'm having, this is my first point and this is the second point. So I just mark a straight line to join the bust points. This one too will be going off. This is my side dart. Now, looking at this now, I am through with my with the contouring with the bustier. So now we know that in bustier, most of the time the dart is not usually at the side. This side dart can be manipulated to other places to make it look more like a bustier, or to make it look properly like a bustier. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to take a curve to my armhole. I'm manipulating it to my armhole. So I'll make sure it does the same way. The head of my curve ruler is on this. I don't want to have a sharp bust point. So then the other line will be, let me turn it so that we can see. So the edge of the ruler of my ruler, the curve will be on this point, and the straight edge will be on this point. This is the half of the armhole. I'm going to draw a curve as well. So I'm going to draw a curve as well. And if we look at the drawing, there's another thing I want us to note. You know, I've removed some excess here from the armhole for the front. But by the time I'm cutting, I will not stop here. Because most of the time, the curve, as a result of this curve, excess is needed when you are sewing into the other side. So I'll be extending my cut to this place. Instead of making use of this line, I will need to draw the back armhole like so. So this will be my back armhole. I will need to draw my back armhole. So I'll be cutting on this back armhole, since I'm cutting on, because of the armhole dart. Yes, because of the armhole dart, that is why I'll be cutting, so that by the time I'm sewing, if there's any excess, I can now cut away. But if there's no excess, good luck. So the next thing now is for me to cut. For the upper part, I'll be cutting on the front armhole. You see that I'm not cutting on this back, I'm cutting on this line, on the front armhole line. That is what I'm cutting now. For the center front. I hope this is my frontal, this is my center front, and I cut on the front armhole. But for this side, I'll be cutting on the back armhole to give space to the excess. But before I cut that, I want to close my dart so that I can blend the line. So let me first adjust my paper like this. You see that when I adjusted, this line does not fall to this line. It has shifted. This one moved to the back, and this one is inside. So I'll just take my ruler and join the straight line like so. So after joining the straight line like so, then I can now cut. I did not add any seam allowance. Welcome back. To draft out the back, I've already drawn my shoulder line. This is my shoulder line where I'm starting from, and this is the zipper allowance. So for the back, you will need a zipper allowance where your zip will sit, and I'm starting from the shoulder line. Just the same way I took 1 inch for the border, I also took 1 inch of the front. So I also took 1 inch for this. So the first thing is I'm going to input my back shoulder to shoulder, and that is 7.5. From the 7.5, I go in by 0.75. Whatever you do for the front, you also do for the back. And here I'll take 7.75 also, and draw a line from the slope, from the point of the slope down. I'll mark my 7.5, which when I measure from the shoulder line is 8.25. I mark it to give me a straight line. Then I can now join the slope. I'll mark 2.5. Since I took 2.5 for the front, I also took 2.5 for the back. So I'll mark 2.5, and I make sure I take this line down to the, this is the chest line, to the chest line. For the back, I don't need a bust point, so I'll be going straight to the waist, and the waist is 17 inches. So I'll be marking down my 17 inches. At times you can take your bust line and take it, but most of the time the difference is negligible. That is why I usually take it that way. So I have 9 inches, and remember, no seam allowance here, no sewing allowance here. So the same way I'll take down the 9 here. And you remember the difference, I calculated the difference the other time, that my dart will be the difference between the bust line and the waist line, because your side must be the same, remember. So bust line is 9, bust circumference divided by 4 is 9, waist circumference 30 divided by 4, 7.5. 9 minus 7.5, 1.5. So the bust span I used for the front is 3.5. So I'm going to take the same 3.5 here. But mind you, if you are not cutting this into 2, you know you will not be adding a seam allowance, a sewing allowance in between. So if you are drafting, if you are putting it as a block, this draft as a block like this on your pattern, make sure you add your seam allowance before cutting. So I'm not cutting, I'm not dividing this back into 2. I am leaving it as a block like this. And you remember the span is 3.5. I'm going to take ½ inch seam allowance. So 3.5 plus 0.5, that will give me 4 inches. So the 3.5 is my bust span, while the ½ inches that make it 4 inches is the same allowance. So I'm having 4 inches span at the back, because I'm not dividing this block, I am using it like this. But if I'm dividing it, then I may not add this allowance, I may add it while I'm cutting my fabrics. So at this edge, the difference between the bust and the waist is 1.5. That is my dart. So to take the 1.5 dart, I'll be sharing it in between this dart line. So I'll be having 0.75 here and 0.75 here. And for this, remember my bust point is 10 inches. This should be. So you go up by 1 inch above the bust line, bust point. So from the shoulder line, you will be having 9 instead of 10. Now you can know the length of your dart now. The length of my dart is 8. So I'll be drawing a straight line to join this point at 8 inches. So this will be the dart that I'll be taking out now. So that is the dart for the back. I hope we can see it. So the next thing now is to draft out my armhole. I'll look for the center. Yes, I'll look for the center of 7.5, which is 3.75. Then you can go in by 0.25, a little bit. To remove the excess at the back, you can go in by 0.7, 0.25. It must not be, you may go in and you may not even go in at all. But if you are going in on the shoulder, on the armhole depth, it should not be more than 0.25 for the back armhole. So at those points now, the next thing, I'm almost through with this draft. The only thing left with is the sway back, so that I will not have any boggle here. I need to remove the excess, and most of the time the excess is usually 0.25. So 0.5, ½ an inch. So I'm removing the ½ an inch here. So once I'm removing the ½ an inch here, I'll be adding the same ½ an inch here. Or peradventure, if you don't want to do that, once you remove the ½ an inch here, instead of taking 1.5 at the center, you just take 1 inch dart at the center. So this ½ an inch now, you measure your back. The back I'm having here is 17. 17 divided by 3, I'll be having something like 5.5. So I'll be stopping 5.5 plus 5.5, I have 11. At least you just stop at 2/3. Look for 2/3 of the back. Divide the back into 2. Then move to the 2/3. Draw the line to blend at the 2/3 of the back. So I'm having it this way. So this place is also going, while I had this dart to this place. So I'll be moving forward here by 0.25. I'll be extending the line here by 0.5, sorry. So I won't be using this line again. I'll be cutting on the second line. But to assume I don't want to have this second line, I will just take 1 inches dart here and remove the remaining 0.5 here at the sway. Having now won't be this straight again. So if I'm taking 1 inches for my zipper allowance, then I'll be marking 1 inches straight down. Instead of marking the 1 inches from this line, I will be marking the 1 inches from this other line. So the 1 inches will be this. So I will now join all the lines together. So the next thing now is to cut out. So by the time I cut out, so at this point I just want us to notice what I'll be placing on my fabrics or any fabric I want to sew with and draft out. And mind you, another important thing, the front, you remember that the length for the back is usually shorter than the length for the front. That I've forgotten when I'm drafting. So the 2 inches I remove from this side, if I should attach a peplon to this back block like this, the peplon is going to drop at the back while it jumps at the front. So in order to avoid that, the 2 inches I used for the side dart at the front, I'm going to remove it here. So instead of having 17 inches for my back, I'll be having 15 inches. That is what I should have measured from the beginning, but it's not too late. So I can just remove the 2 inches like this and make sure. Then from here now to this place, I'll be having 15 inches. So the back block should not be more than 15 inches. Very, very important, please. So that is if you forget, but make sure when you are drafting yours, make sure you deduct your side darts from the length of your shoulder to waist by the time you are measuring before you start drafting. So if I bring in my front block, this is my front block for the side, you will see that it's tally with this side. If I should put it on this side, I hope we see what I was saying. You can see that it tallies. Let me trim it very well so that you will see. You see that they are the same length. Now I can easily sew this, my front side to my back side. They are now the same length. And by making use of this block now, once I attach a peplon to this, it will leverage properly at the front and at the back. Thank you very much. Thank you for watching.